That's the way it is. America's coming back. We're going to take control of our country and our government. And unfortunately, the only option at this point in time isn't citizens with pitchforks. It will be the military option after lawful civilian authority is put into power as the American people voted for. And then that lawful civilian authority will administer the direction that the country goes through the military regaining control of these locations and facilities so that we can get our country back for American citizens' benefit, not for a bunch of globalist, pedophile thugs and Satan-worshiping thieves the way that they want it to be. With the things that are going to happen here shortly, the mainstream media, as it currently exists, is trying to program people's minds to think that what will happen, what must happen, is somehow the makings of a civil war, that it's somehow illegal or unjust. It's the exact opposite. It's not illegal or unjust. It is the lawful exercise of the people's will by the military, protecting the people's will in the Constitution. And to the extent that they would twist that, they become irrelevant themselves. They've picked a side, and it's against the American people. The new media that you represent, properly explaining this, properly putting it in perspective for people, you're valid because you represent reality, and you represent the will of the American people, and you represent the right of the American people to have that conversation and make it happen. The fact that we're going to come after these monsters and displace them out of office and take control of the country may not be pleasant and easy, but it's what has to be done. And in working that through, it's not a civil war, it's a revolutionary war. The attack came from foreign shores. America had a revolution against the bloodlines, the king, the Brits. And that's why the Constitution was written, this alliance, this coming together of the states against what had become a foreign enemy. Washington, D.C., in the way that it's administering against the American people, doing the bidding of foreign masters, promoting this false Russian collusion thing, and protecting a fake vote, a false vote, a digital Pearl Harbor against America, has become the enemy of the American people in the way it administers. And so we're in the middle of a revolutionary war against foreign entities taking over power and control in our country. That's America coming together against a foreign enemy. If you hear people saying that we're having a civil war, that we're destroying things internally, that, you know, we're supposedly going with pitchforks to do whatever, no, we're not. This isn't a civil war. And we're not going to burn down our own house to save it. We're going to catch those monsters by the tail, and we're going to throw them and get them. We're going to retake lawful authority of government operations in America, and we're going to do it through a legal, proper means, which is get the executive that we voted for.
We're going to take back the White House, and sooner than you think. It's going to be really something special.
Back into office. And then that executive that we voted for is going to make the correct decisions to safely bring America back together again, and take it away from those who are illegal, who are unlawful, who are not the ones we voted for. And we're not going to burn our own house down. We're not going to tear it apart. Even if we have agent provocateurs that are put into our midst trying to pull it off, we, the American people, will pull them down off the buildings. We'll stop them clubbing the windows out. If they open up the doors to try and invite us to do wrong, we're not going to do it in mass. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people were there present at Congress on January 6th and never entered the building unlawfully. A handful that might have to look around with some agent provocateurs that did some mischief. Well, that's a little different story, but we're not going to fall for that. And we see how we're being baited to fall for that. That's not what we're going to do. We're going to support our military, the people that are our fellow citizens in these lawful positions, to go do what they have to do under the lawful authorities' direction as we take our country back. And that's not a civil war. That's a revolutionary war against foreign enemies operating on U.S. soil with treasonous, seditious, traitorous cooperation by some of Americans who themselves have shown that they don't deserve the title American.
Okay, so here's a question for everybody. Trump's going to address the nation tomorrow night. It's the first time he's addressed the nation, since he became president. Where it wasn't just like he's doing a signing ceremony, something like that. This is a specific address to the nation. And one of the things that we had said privately, through channels to the president was he needed to do some kind of an address to the nation to bring everybody up to speed. When you're doing you got a bunch of people in the room, you're signing a bill, you're whatever, it's not the same feel as when you put everything else to the outside. It's even different than the State of the Union. And then address the American people and let us know where we're at. We're blocking all the oil tankers in Venezuela. We have a $50 million bounty on Maduro to prosecute him, take him into custody, prosecute him for terrorism. The money from these oil tankers is going to fund terrorist activity from Venezuela. Venezuela is where the people came from and the system came from to corrupt on the machines in America, but all over the world. Leadership running their countries who aren't the will of the people in those countries through vote fraud. So the president's getting ready to address the nation, bring us up to speed, give us kind of a report card, where we're at, where we got to go, why we got to do it. There's a national emergency order coming. He's just like he declared national emergency over COVID, he'll declare national emergency over elections because our elections process and systems are completely untrustworthy, unreliable, totally captured. We have that, just like Trump said concerning Tina Peters the other day, 2020, a rigged election. 2020, it's not over yet.
It's not over yet.
Okay, he said it, so I sing it. But things that I've been telling this audience, other audiences for many years, is now beginning to gel and come to pass. It's all the entire focal point of President Trump's time in public office, life. I think the hinge moment of his entire life in our generation is going to be when he announces a national election emergency, declares a national emergency, and then in the context of that, at the same time or within a couple of days, issues the executive order signs it concerning how we're going to conduct the 2026 election. So Venezuela is not separated from the national election emergency statement because the cheat came from Venezuela, with Cuban, Russian, Chinese, Serbian, and many other countries' involvement, including out of NATO. When he makes that decree, that's the most important thing he'll do in his entire life. And in the context of that, returning an honest vote to the American people as a first step towards returning an honest vote to the peoples of the world. The people that we have here in the United States that we brought into protective custody here are right now testifying before grand juries, more than one here in the country, about how they use their system and see telltale markers of their system in vote systems like Tina Peters around the country. And therefore, our electronics, our paper, everything as it currently exists is not safe from foreign tampering or domestic. And so we have to run the future elections differently, and he's going to announce that we have to do that. It'll be hand count, paper ballot, we're asked what we vote, no maintenance at all, with the exception of military, rare mail-ins in certain situations, well documented, no drop boxes, and clean voter rolls. And part of the reason for the urgency in getting this emergency election order in place, think about this. President Trump on March 15th or March 25th of 2025, his 107th executive order, signed at 7 p.m. Eastern, was concerning the voter rolls in the elections. And he ordered that all of the officials involved at the state level and at the county level clean up the voter rolls throughout the country as an executive order. Subsequent to that, take a wild guess how many by percent of the voter rolls got cleaned up at the county level. 0. Nobody cleaned them up. And that, they just thumbed their nose at President Trump. Now that's laid the groundwork for what's about to happen next, which is President Trump, since nobody obeyed his executive order, just like they're ignoring and thumbing their nose at President Trump's pardon of Tina Peters. We don't have to follow that. You know, we don't care. Your order doesn't mean shit to us. President Trump's got to raise the bar a bit. And so what he's going to do is to declare a national election emergency. And within the emergency, he is king. He is going to be able to do whatever he needs to do with military backup. He can call in the military wherever they're not following his directive. If elections are on the line, it's a national security issue. And not being able to get clean voter rolls out in counties and states, because they're just not going to clean it up. We're not going to go Trump's way. He can send in troops, take over, and get it done right. And that's to protect the civil rights of every American citizen against foreign interference, including foreigners voting in our elections who have no legal right to be there, or multiple votes in the elections that, you know, are somebody's fraud to steal the governance of our nation away from the people and to foreigners, to private interests, to the cabal, if you will. Trump is going to stop that, and he will use the military as needed to pull that off. So he doesn't have to deploy the military to every last county in the country, but there's going to be certain ones, just like Governor Polis in Colorado, where they're in defiance of federal authority. Trump's going to have to go out and make a point of that this is a national emergency. Our vote is not for sale. And we will protect it with the military as needed. That's part of our constitutional duties. When Trump issues that executive order following it, how we conduct the election within the context of a national emergency. That executive order, which I had a team that I was familiar with, the one that was proposed before Trump was even elected. It was weak. And so I had a number of the coalition team members that are extremely good and have expertise necessary to put together proposed executive order. We all went through it, and they did a fantastic job. 17 pages, by the way. By tomorrow. By the way, tomorrow is December 17th. Anyway, when Trump issues the executive order to follow the national election emergency, he will have absolute authority to enforce that. And unlike when they snubbed their noses at him with the 107th executive order, they will not get the opportunity to snub their nose at him this time around. And failure to comply within the national election emergency means that some of these people, if they're dumb enough, foolish enough to challenge President Trump's authority to do this, will find themselves in federal custody facing federal charges, which, by the way, conviction has mandatory minimums. So we're going to get an honest, clean election run the proper way one day, hand count, paper ballot, counted where cast. Nobody's put the votes in the ballots in the trunk of the police car or grandma's knitting basket. No central vote counting locations like Nevada and many other states have. They will be counted where cast. We'll have the answers by midnight. No multi-day, endless counting forever, recounting. No late ballots. No mail-in ballots. Zero, not one, zilch, except for military and in very limited situations. People that can only do it by mail-in. And that will be very, very limited. No drop boxes. This is going to be epic. What he's going to do in changing the way we run elections and then issuing that executive order is going to eliminate the possibility for cheating. And a lot of places that appear to be very liberal aren't going to be liberal at all. By the way, Newsom lost his recall election, and it was only through fraud in LA County that he wasn't recalled. So there's all sorts of drama there in California, other places. Enjoy the show.
Well, Juan, I live in the beautiful state of Illinois, and just right here in the suburbs of Chicago, and I'm witnessing my state.
And by the way, let me just say, I had family interests with the farm in northwestern Illinois. I love Illinois.
Oh, thank you.
And in fact, one of the relatives was a fire chief in the wake of the big Chicago fire. Came in with a lot of other kids and eventually became a very high ranking within the fire department there. I have a lot of love and respect for Chicago, and so just so you know, it's Chicago's in a hell of a place right now. But anyway.
But no, and it just goes to what you're. No. It goes to exactly what you were saying. Jim and I were talking earlier today about this, because my thoughts, Jim's thoughts, I think, to what you're alluding to, specifically in each state, and then globally, everything resides based off elections, and people knew if they could, 10 people can ruin 10,000 people's lives if they had the right 10 people in there. So if they can vote them in, they could, and they've done that for so long in certain countries and certain. I mean, this isn't just a United States thing, and I think if we correct, and like President Trump comes out tomorrow and says this is the most important thing that he's going to say, and there is a national emergency based off of this because of the corruption and all the cheating that happened in 2020, and it's going to go beyond that. You said before in multiple interviews about, you unravel 2020, you unravel 2020 to 2016 to 2018 to, I mean. Our governor was elected in 2022. Totally false. I mean, the guy couldn't even spell his name, but yet he's still sitting there and he's enjoying that. Same with the governor or the mayor of Chicago. So I say that in that I want people to know.
Let me add this. Why you have here's the deal. You want weak people in there if you're puppeteering them, because you don't want them thinking for themselves.
Right.
They're there at your beck and call, your direction, if you're the puppeteer. So when you see these people where you're like, how did they, in whose world are they qualified to be in these high offices? Well, in the world of the puppeteers. They want dumbass, controllable people that have issues that can be manipulated and won't leave the script, because if they do, they'll be wiped out. That's the whole point of roping people into places like Epstein Island and other places. So anyway, sorry to interrupt you. But
No. I'm just saying, but my whole point was, how do we then unravel all of that? So if you, my always analogy is, remember as a kid, you have a baseball. I used to take a baseball and take the string and you just roll it. And you could roll it 7 miles because it just rolls all the way out to a little tiny ball. We can literally take this all the way back to what date, and just roll this back. How far does this undo what's been done?
Well, hold on a second. Let me say this. Alexander the Great was known for one particular thing. He was the one that could unravel the Gordian knot that defied everybody else to be able to unravel it. How did he do that? He didn't waste time trying to unravel it. He took out a sword and cut it in half, and it fell apart. Okay. Yeah. Who's defining the rules here? What Trump is about to do, I've got great friends who, from a couple different directions, have spent millions of dollars coming up with the voter roll cleanup processes to determine, who's a valid voter and isn't, and lives in the right district and is duplicating votes in different states, blah, blah, blah. And they've spent all this money to help clean up, the people that can vote. And at the end of the day, Trump's not going to waste time trying to clean it up. Just set them aside, start over, because see, in my friend's way of looking at it, you're never going to be able to get all the counties, all the states to agree to just start with fresh voter rolls. The only way that you're going to get agreement between all the states is you have to, in a military sense, take control of the election process. Everybody has to comply. We're starting over. Clean voter rolls. Everybody has to re-register to vote because it's a national emergency. Everybody's going to have to show up with government-issued ID. They'll fill out a voter registration card. This is where I live. This is my party affiliation. This is, because you have to give an address, because that tells what district you're in for voting. Every district is a little different. You got school bonds, stadium bonds, all sorts of things based on your address. And the thing that the people on the next block over from you vote on might have some commonality, but it might have all sorts of stuff that's different because you're not in that same sewer district or development district or something else, or with the way they redraw things for a city council or a county council type thing, because you're not in the city or you're outside the city or whatever. So there's a lot of issues there. When you show up to re-register to vote, it's going to be under penalty of perjury. You're going to sign your voter roll registration card, and the county clerk that accepts it and sees you sign it and verifies your ID is going to certify you're who you are. She has verified your ID and you're a citizen ready to vote. With all of that in mind, we won't have non-citizens voting. We're going to have very clean voter rolls that could not be administered from, say, uh, uh, some state level or county level and have uniformity across the country. And part of the problem is everybody else complies. You got a couple of states here or there, and they say we're not going to, and they continue with their fraudulent practices and vote. And then the rest of the country is left with their BS. So, by ordering everybody, we all have to do it. And normally so from the executive office, that's where these people have spent all the money cleaning up and coming up with processes to clean up the voter rolls. We're not trying to unravel that knot. Trump's just going to hit it with the sword, split it in half. There you go. Gordian knot solved.
May I ask you, hi Juan, this is Anna here. I wanna ask you about Hillary Clinton's was going to be taken to the Congress, and
Yep.
now it's postponed. It was just one day after this announcement from President Trump. So is it our move to, because you always remind us, they make a move, we make a move. And now they are postponing for the next month. So is
Well,
it?
let me help you
Mhm.
out here.
Sure.
President Clinton and Hillary, they're under subpoena to come and disclose to Congress what they know from personal experience about Jeffrey Epstein and his operations at Epstein Island and their involvement with him. While they're delaying, they might be evading Congress on this. Maybe they'll get to continue evading a little longer. Jeffrey Epstein, they can, what's the definition of is? They can poo-poo it. Congress actually has no enforcement authority. They have referral authority over to the Justice Department for things over there if they, get false statements, things like that. The real concern that the Clintons have right now is that uh, they are implicated directly in the Russia scam. Especially Hillary, because it was her campaign. But Bill has problems back to the Clinton Foundation and other things with political payoff, black bag money. So at the end of the day, as bad as not showing up for Congress for their subpoenas might be, and the little fight, and they're trying to say that they're not going to go along with Congress. Bannon did that and ended up going to prison for a period of time. They don't see an answer, because if they answer questions at the Epstein inquiry or don't answer, they implicate themselves anyway, and they've got a lot to be worried about. That's not really their concern. Their concern is Russia, Russiagate. And the issues there are treason. They committed acts of war against the American people in promoting a fraudulent narrative of Russian interference in the election with Trump, etc., and interfered with the ability of President Trump and the American government to carry out the wishes of the American people. That is treasonous activity. When they face justice there, which is what President Trump was complaining about with Pam Bondi. Here's the rest of the story with Pam Bondi. Over the weekend at the Army-Navy game, while President Trump was over there, he also sent some texts over to Pam Bondi. And, what's going on? Why haven't we got proper investigation, prosecution? And he named a bunch of different players. what's going on at Justice Department that we can't get to justice there. Now, I will tell you that months and months ago, we had a very sensitive matter, and we're looking for action from the Justice Department, and got the word behind the scenes that this would be best at the Justice Department. You can't get to justice at the Justice be addressed for a different direction. And everybody involved was like, "Oh my gosh, how are we going to do that? Who's going to allow us to do this?" And um, uh, short version is we had to go to a different agency in order to get what we needed over at the Justice Department. They weren't going to do anything. We were warned of that, and this whole thing went a different direction. We got something started investigative wise at another location and will lead to prosecution. It just wouldn't start over at the Justice Department. Well, it's the same thing whether you're talking Russia, and the Clintons, or Epstein and other things. They're locked up. There's some kind of dysfunction at Justice Department. So, with that in mind, we're going to watch and see that something's going to happen coming from another quarter completely. And some of that, not all of it, some of that is military. So you're going to see military taking up with investigations and actions that need to be done. It's coming, and that will result in trips to Gitmo for people. I will tell you also that 2 years ago now, a little over 2 years ago, I had people that are from the intelligence community that have certain particular precise skill sets. And I was shocked when initially one person, a woman in this case, I couldn't get a response, and eventually did through a family member who advised that that person was on an investigative tribunal and couldn't talk to me. And then I found out two other people were also seated on investigative tribunals. So you have different levels of tribunal. You have an investigative tribunal looking whether or not somebody should be brought up on charges. And then you can have a prosecutorial tribunal to hear the facts, evidence, charges, and then reach a decision within a military setting. And that includes within the intelligence community, spies, uh, and military. So there's a number of people that are on the hook. And by the way, yes, you can have a military tribunal try a citizen. That's some of what came out in the Justice Kavanaugh stuff, where the testimony was you can try civilians for military crimes in front of a military tribunal in certain situations. And that's also going to be part of what's going on to fraud an election and put somebody in who is not the will of the people is an act of war. And so those people that have participated in putting people into office fraudulently, especially high office, are committing acts of treason, acts of war. And these can be heard by a tribunal, and in fact are most properly heard in a military setting because they've committed acts of treason and war against the American people and the Constitution. Does that kind of click for you?
Yes, I wanna make a bridge here and try to ask you something regarding Brazil and
Yeah.
regarding President Trump being more vocal, not vocal, but he has taken away some sanctions that was hitting directly the Supreme Court owner, the boss of the Brazil here
Yeah.
for the show. And it seems that President Trump is kind of talking to him direct. I don't say directly, but he's been referring to him directly through the orders. I mean, through the sanctions being taken out, and the same as to President Lula. So it all makes all the Tina Peter situation kind of leads me to Bolsonaro's situation here. I don't see it as a similar situation, but it reminds the same scenario, and many people have their high expectations on Bolsonaro. And so I was going to ask you, all this line being created by President Trump through Lula, through President Lula, and through Alexander de Moraes, the owner of the Supreme Court here in Brazil, is it all connected to Venezuela? And
Well, I wouldn't say that's accurate.
no,
Well, go ahead, finish your question. I'm sorry.
no. Yeah, that's my main question, and then I would bring Bolsonaro to the scenario, because I do think my inner intuition says that we probably will see something very surprising coming out of this Bolsonaro situation, being held on prison. That's my intuition.
Well, okay, let me help you out just a little bit there.
Thank
Number
you.
one, as I said a number of times, the people that we have in protective custody here in the United States that are testifying right now before grand juries in multiple locations, multiple situations, they have said their affidavits, their testimony is that they overturned, captured, hijacked elections in 71 countries plus the United States. Now think about that. That's like over half the world. So you have leadership in country all over the world. It's this march to war that's going on worldwide right now. Well, all this leadership that's not the will of the people, that somebody has imposed upon the people of the world through fraudulent elections, that leadership, not the will of the people, is a crisis. We're going to attack the crisis here in America with fraudulent votes first. And then, like the scripture says judgment begins in the house of the Lord. So if there's illegality, if there's lying, fraud, theft taking place in the church or the temple or whatever, then it's up to the leadership there, and God himself begins the cleansing in the temple before he goes out into the rest of society. Within governments, within the leadership across the world, before America goes and tries to sort out other countries completely, we're going to get honest elections here in America. That's why you have to have a national election emergency declared, which gives Trump the authority legally to go in and manhandle and take control of what's going on in the election process, so that we get uniformity for civil rights purposes for all Americans of an honest vote, all states for an honest vote, all counties for an honest vote. There's no way to legislate that. You could never get all the legislatures to agree. You couldn't get all the governors to agree. And there's certain fundamentals that must be met to get to honest, clean elections again. And that is, you have to set aside the existing voter rolls. You can't fix them. All the people that have spent millions of dollars trying to fix the voter rolls, none of them can say they're 100%. They all have to admit they're only going to get, to 93, 94%. And you're still going to have 5, 6, 10% fraud, illegality available within the voter rolls. So you have to start with clean voter rolls. Well, the only way to get agreement on that is to order it within the context of a national emergency. We're at risk of people who are not us, the American citizens, deciding who gets to run our country. And through fraud, through vice, it's Al Capone. Okay. We can't have that. So Trump has to dictate, how do we unravel this Gordian knot? We don't. Just split it in half, tear it apart, start over. And that's what he's going to order. Then the election executive order lays out the structure of precisely who does what, how does it happen. One day vote, hand count, paper ballot, counted where cast, on clean voter rolls that you have to start from fresh. And you got to give people time to re-sign up. They're going to have to show up with government issued ID, blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of angles that have to be covered here. President Trump is going to make sure that happens. And we're going to enjoy, it is the most important thing that Trump will do in his entire time, his entire life in this world, is give us clean voter rolls and a clean vote, an honest vote. Honest weights and measures is the way the scripture says it. God abhors dishonest weights and measures. Well, that's fraud in the election system. Who's leading you? We're going to get honest weights and measures, not just in the vote. The second most important thing that Trump is going to do that's going to change the world, not just America, and it goes to Brazil, is he's going to order, we're going to move from a Federal Reserve-based monetary system over to a treasury system where we aren't going with fiat money, which isn't backed by anything, just paper. We're going to go to certificates of deposit. As Kennedy was beginning to institute, he was trying to transit America over into treasury certificates. So you would get a silver certificate. President Kennedy was issuing silver certificates. It was tied by serial numbers to pallets of silver in the possession of the treasury, minted silver. That was known weights, measures, purity. And when you got a silver certificate, only so many certificates could be printed per specific volume of silver, and it was tied to it with a number. Right now, your fiat currency isn't tied to anything but air, okay, in the Federal Reserve System, and that's an international system. So he's going to move, it will start paying all of our debts based on gold and silver certificates, which are a receipt for gold or silver on deposit inside the Treasury. And then the other thing he's going to do, he's going to revalue. People misstate it. They don't understand Gassar and Assar, all that. Trump's not doing either. We are going to reset and make more realistic the value of the gold in the vaults, the value of the silver. And so we will have money as a receipt for gold or silver on deposit in the U.S. Treasury, and they'll revalue it at a new valuation. It's way undervalued, $42.22 an ounce, and bring it up to the real world. And that will have a lot to do with how we revalue our debt and who it's to. President Trump is actually presiding over the bankruptcy of America. And part of that is setting aside fraudulent debt, like any good bankruptcy judge would, overcharging, etc., because there's not enough there to cover everything. So he has to decide what's a legitimate debt, who the original legitimate people are that were lost their investment or frauded, and who the ones are trying to pad the bill and try to make it make sense. And that's what Trump is going to do. So with all of that said, not only do we want honest elections for America, we want honest elections for the whole world. And where there's been fraud and where we have knowledge and we have the people in our physical custody, they can help testify around the world concerning election fraud in various places, and places where you have to rerun an election, where the people holding power are not there honestly, legitimately. And that's going to change the course of direction of the whole world, not just America. And we don't do it to be tyrants. We don't want to take over other countries. We want to work with them. We don't want to be our brother's keeper. We want to be our brother's brother. Now, in Brazil's specific case, part of the issue, because of all the dramas going on around the world, including with China and Russia and everything else, there was a move, and is a move, to go to BRICS and try to take on the dollar and its hegemony over the world, and to bring down America many notches with the fraud that's going on in the international reserve system, not just America. And then even to back it, not fully, but with some modest percentage for show of gold. I will tell you, and of course, BRICS is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and then all these various affiliates, creating a new monetary system where the US is really the world's reserve currency. When Trump went to the Mideast and worked an arms deal with Saudi Arabia, what happened to the BRICS arrangement where Saudi Arabia was going to be all in and doing oil trades based on BRICS currency, not just dollars? What was the reason for the fight in Iraq in the first place? Saddam Hussein had threatened to go to a basket of currencies before Gulf War I and to denominate their oil in a basket of currencies, which would have undermined the dollar. And that's why that could not be allowed to stand in the international Federal Reserve system. Those players that benefit from that, and don't confuse that with the American people or the American government. The International Federal Reserve System is a private banker club. The Federal Reserve note is private banker fiat currency. It's no more federal than Federal Express. It's just a private company issuing the notes, and their lawful right to do that was done under a fraud back in 1913 with a bunch of politicians who violated the U.S. Constitution by handing that authority over to the Federal Reserve. We're going to overturn that back. We don't want to blow up the world. We don't want it all to do so fast that the cure is worse than the disease, but there is a transition coming. Now, the second thing in the Mideast that happened, and it's happened to other countries around the world almost without anybody fully realizing what was happening. Trump went over to Qatar and he worked a deal with Qatar. And they, as a result, both Saudi Arabia and Qatar, decided they weren't going to be all in on the BRICS deal. Now there's still stuff, agreements, things they're going to do, but nothing close to what the original agreement was. In other words, Trump was there to defend the dollar. Now they're going to take what currency they have, what obligations they have, and trade it for American-built arms. So that money isn't going to go to China or India or England or Russia to buy arms from those places. It's going to go to U.S. manufacturers making the arms and denominating it in dollars or treasury certificates, which is where we'll go. And that takes the wind out of the sails on the BRICS situation. And it's not just for a day or two, because when they enter those agreements, they include aircraft and other stuff that have to be updated, improved, maintenanced. The crews have to be trained here in the U.S. A lot of the maintenance crews, things like that, come here to be trained, to go back and do it. And then the spare parts. They've entered into contracts, military agreements that are 30 years at a minimum. These aircraft purchases, not just 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. So they're tying their defense and attack systems to U.S. policy. If for any reason they run afoul of U.S. policy with what they want to do militarily, we just don't continue to train their teams. We don't give them spare parts, and all of those aircraft and military systems become paperweights, literally in months, not days. I mean, not years. Some of them might be days, literally, without U.S. Including remote servicing into the computer systems and all sorts of stuff, looking at the diagnostics and things like that. They have to stay close to the U.S. So we created a situation where they're going to align themselves policy-wise and monetary-wise directly to the U.S. for decades and decades to come, which now Brazil is in a bit of a tough place because they're in with this BRICS thing. They're right at the beginning of it, but at the end of the day, it's a fool's errand to proceed the way BRICS was set up in the beginning. So now they need to decide to align themselves with the U.S. also for their own well-being. Now, I can tell you that there's money out of Europe. There's a number of players dealing with the banking elite in Brazil, trying to get them to bring what we call off-ledger money on ledger within the BRICS system and to allow it to be traded. That money was offered into the U.S. Federal Reserve System, but again, that only strengthens the globalista, the banks out of the City of London. Trump's not going that direction. They want to monetize it. They're going to have to do it at Treasury, and we're not quite ready yet to receive those funds or monetize them. They're trying to push. They want to get it done yesterday. No, we're going to do it on our timing. And part of the reason for that includes this Venezuela thing. Let me just add, Venezuela is in a hell of a situation. Oil wells do not get turned on and off like a spigot or faucet. When you have oil flowing, it's capillary action. If you don't maintain the flow, you can damage a well. So you have to keep the oil flowing. Right now, we've just put Venezuela on notice. We're not letting any more tankers out. Nobody else is going to bring a tanker in. All the tankers that are there are full. They're just storage tanks at this point in time. Venezuela is going to try and put oil into everything that'll hold, any pot that'll hold an ounce of oil. They literally have almost the largest oil reserves in the world and of high quality oil. Here's their problem. If they don't come to an agreement quickly with the U.S. concerning especially the oil in those tankers, very shortly, all of the oil wells in Venezuela are going to have to be turned off, destroying capillary action. You'll have to cap off those wells and re-drill them in order to use those wells again, because the existing wellheads will very quickly be nothing. Now, Russia, when they were trying to fight what was done under Reagan, they were literally pumping oil out onto the ground just to keep the wells flowing. Although there was nowhere to put it, the price was so low, it wasn't even worth moving the oil. So they're just pumping it out on the ground so they wouldn't lose capillary action. And eventually they just said, okay, we got to stop, shut the wells off, and walk away. And they walked away from billions and billions and billions of dollars of oil well equipment, pipe, heavy equipment, etc. Venezuela is in a similar situation. If you keep the oil pumping, there's no space to store it at the refinery. If we're not letting in other chemicals to do anything in the refinery, you can't make it into anything without those chemicals. They can't ship it out. They're going to have to turn off their wells at some point in time. And when they do, the damage to those wells is permanent. So they don't have a lot of time to decide if they want to work a deal with Trump. The cost is so great for that elite crowd that it'll cost them hundreds of billions of dollars to hundreds of billions of dollars to rebuild that infrastructure once they shut it off. And it's not done in a day or a week or a month. It could take a decade or more and vast amounts of money to rebuild those oil fields if they don't come up with a solution quickly. Trump stopping the flow of oil of tankers out of the country and the money into the country from it is a direct blow. And it sends a message to everybody, including the neighbors, including Brazil. You need to cooperate because the consequences are so great. Colombia, Bolivia has already made some decisions. Chile is making decisions. Ecuador is making decisions that are favorable to where Trump is going. Brazil, we're there to help, but we're not going to help the bad guys. And election fraud was involved. There's going to have to be some admission by the courts that are trying to block getting to the truth. The Brazilian people are going to have to take control of those locations and start to flip it around. And BRICS is on the table. If you want to do the BRICS thing, great. But where Russia has sanctions against it, where China has sanctions, this oil coming out of Venezuela was going to China.
So they are cornered. I'm sorry.
They're cornered. Yeah.
Yes, they are
Go ahead. I'm
cornered.
sorry.
No. They are cornered. They don't have no way. There's no way out for them. And that's my concern because when there's no way out for someone, they attack. And right now, what I've been seeing, well, we used to listen from people their eagerness to oh yeah, we have to go to the streets, we have to do this and that. And I said, you stop doing this. You're being just imbeciles as as you were until now. So let's pay attention on President Trump, and because it's the Magador move. He's playing the Magador with the Latin America, with South America now. Okay.
Well, I think it's important. Trump is the Matador. He's the Magador. Make America great again. But that's not just for America. He wants to make Brazil great again. Okay, why would that be if America wants to be great again? Does that mean that we have to do it over the best interests of the Brazilian people? Not at all. America doesn't want what these globalists want. We don't want weak leaders that can then be manipulated and controlled. We want strong leaders in countries around the world as trade partners. Why do we want strong leaders who are very strong in negotiating for the best interests of their own people? Because we look at these other countries, and especially Brazil here in the Americas, brother sharpens brother as iron sharpens iron. That's a biblical passage. If you're strong, you will work to keep us strong. If we have to compete with you on an honest, even playing field, the resources available to the Brazilian people are not the same as the resources available to the American people. When you're strong, you can get the very best deal with your unique items, and we'll pay it. And where we're stronger, we'll get the very best deal for our people, and you'll pay it because it's brother sharpens brother. We're not actually competing directly on everything. There's certain zones where you're stronger than we are, and so we negotiate. We come up with a deal, okay? We want strong trading partners because if you're sharp, it keeps us sharp. And if you're sharp, it's unlikely that a mutual enemy will attack either of us. I want strong brothers, strong sisters, strong alliances, which means neither of us, none of us are getting attacked by these globalista because they're too weak compared to us. We're working together for our best interests, whether it's the environment, which is made a big thing of. Look, Brazil, oh my gosh, the wealth that's being destroyed by these interests that are going in and logging off the rainforest. People don't even know the real history there. We know that the rainforest was a terraced area that was done with very precise hectares of terraced land, like the Orient Asians do with these very specific terraced groups. That at some ancient time, it was some type of a planned garden that somebody literally gardened. It's a mystery greater than the pyramids, and it's right there in Brazil. It's unfathomable, and that's why you have this rich, amazing flora there. You need the opportunity to protect it and find another way to make money. You're burning it off for fuel, getting people to burn off food for fuel. We have lots of ways to make fuel. That's actually asinine. But you won't get there with the crooked politicians that you've had running the country and raping it dead, or raping it for a tiny fraction of rare earth materials on the surface, and you destroy everything for for a little teeny bite. Who's behind this? This is insane. This is asinine. The Brazilian people know this. If you get honest elections, the Brazilian people will protect their own resources, and we'll be right there. If you need particular things that we have that we don't have to destroy our world for, we'll trade them with you, and you'll have things that we want that come out of what you have that we will value and appreciate, and we want that. So a strong Brazil, make Brazil great again, at the same time that we're making America great again, and then together we're much stronger. And these globalista that are trying to take over the whole world with their fraudulent money and agreements, etc. BRICS, you're going to get aligned with Russia and China and India, and you're going to win that deal? Are you kidding me? They want to rape Brazil. That's why they came to Brazil, to start there, to do their mischief. And they bought a bunch of the pride. It's Brazil. We're right there. Oh my gosh, we're the beginning. They're going to have to deal with us. You know what? You're getting conned. And Trump is putting an end to it, and they're not going to get away with it. All right? So at the end of the day, stop. Anyway, I've got another appointment that I have to get to and head out for. So one last question.
Senator Mark Kelly.
Oh,
we haven't talked about Senator Mark Kelly, because I think that's pretty significant. The Pentagon is investigating him for his comments. He thinks his remarks are okay because he can say whatever he wants. And they're actually calling it, and I haven't studied a lot on him today, but the Pentagon launches a full command investigation, and people are shocked as to what that could be. But I think he's one of the seditious six, isn't he?
Yeah, you've got a bunch of, it's not even limited to six now, it's a couple hundred, really, if you want to get right down to it. So at the end of the day, these people are saying that you can defy an order from Trump as an illegal order, and you can make that decision to do that. Okay, let me tie that to Tina's situation. Last thing I'll say here. This is very, very important. Imagine this. The governor of Colorado, the attorney general of Colorado, the warden at the prison where Tina's being held, they've said that you don't have to obey, if you're a prison guard, if you're an administrative employee in the prison system, you don't have to obey a presidential pardon. It has no bearing in Colorado. But you know what? They're just telling you that there's no backup for that. Do you know that there's no action in the court system to back up their statement? It's never been adjudicated. The presumption is that a presidential order is just that. It has the law of the land behind it, and supersedes all other legal stuff. So no one has ever overturned or prosecuted somebody who's been pardoned in a presidential pardon. It's never happened. So the governor of Colorado is saying that no, 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 no. It's a state thing and we don't have to obey the president. Okay, if you're a guard at a prison in Colorado, you belong to a union of federated governmental employees. And your union represents people working in the state system and, by the way, in the federal guard system. Why? Because you have the Supermax in Colorado, the Alcatraz of the Rockies. Okay, the Alcatraz of the Rockies has all these federal employees. You got El Chapo in there. You got the Unabomber. You got all sorts of people there in the prison system there. Would you say that if the president issued an order to a federal guard at a federal prison at the Supermax, that they would have the right to ignore it because they're in Colorado and the president doesn't matter in Colorado? No, no. And so here's your conundrum as an employee over there at La Vista. Just because a governor tells you something doesn't mean it's true or it's law. Here's my advice to every employee that has had any contact with Tina, because one of the things that's going to happen here shortly, probably in the next days, is there's going to be subpoenas of all the logs of everybody who's ever had any involvement with or contact with Tina within the prison system, anywhere within the administration of her sentence. And especially starting with since President Trump signed that pardon. If you're defying the pardon because some state employee, all the way to the governor, says you don't have to, the case that should be on your mind, and by the way, you should go retain private, personal legal counsel immediately, as in before the clock runs out today. And you should ask that legal counsel for direct indemnification for your actions. You need a letter that the warden and the prison are going to protect you from any prosecution or recovery for damages that Tina Peterson's going to be able to get, because she's going to sue everybody. And it's going to be personal, because any law enforcement officer knows you cannot violate the rights of a citizen just because you like it. You can make mistakes. And if you make the right mistakes, the police union can't protect you, and neither can the government. Look at Floyd Brown. Supposedly, he violated the civil rights, the officer did, of Floyd Brown. He's in prison right now. He's fighting for his life from prison, behind prison bars. Supposedly did something which, even though the guy was on meth and all sorts of stuff, the system decided to target him, the Chavez, the police officer. He's a pawn in somebody's bigger game. The whole country was politicized over this whole thing. Tina's a pawn in the game. If they can put Tina in prison, she was a clerk elected in the county protecting the record. And now we all know it's true. Everything that she said was going wrong, she proved. Everything that was proven in the record inside the machines about destroying vote information, etc., in violation of federal law, let alone state, it's all being proven true right now. And she's in jail. If you're a prison guard and you obey an order that's unlawful, okay, just because the governor says, no, it's lawful, it's lawful. The case is federal crop insurance versus Merrill versus federal crop insurance. Take a look at that case. Have your attorneys take a look at it. And what it says in the decision, any person entering into any contract or agreement. You have an employment agreement. Pay attention. Any person entering into any contract or agreement with any government agent, officer, employee, contractor has the responsibility personally to determine if the person they're engaging with has the lawful right to do what they say they can do. So the governor can tell you anything he wants. It's your personal responsibility as a guard. You're on the hook. You have to determine if something the governor tells you to do is in fact lawful, correct, legitimate, authorized, that he has the authority to tell you to do something that he may tell you to do, including keep Tina Peters incarcerated. So what you're looking for, you need to retake. Don't trust that you get a union lawyer to represent you because they're protecting the union and all the other members and supervisors too. You better get your own private attorney, have them address the warden, the union, the Department of Corrections director, and the attorney general and the governor. And you need a letter from each and every one for different reasons. Because you may find yourself in criminal peril. You may find yourself in financial peril because Tina Peters can sue you personally because you violated her civil rights. Your job description does not allow you to do that. Every police officer knows this. Go look at the guy that's in jail on the Floyd Brown case, okay? You need to decide if you're being put in peril, and here's part of the rest of it. Do you realize that it's an unfair employment practice to put you in legal peril where you have to choose between, do I worry about a catch-22 where the feds are coming after me or the governor's coming after me? Because if you decide not to obey the governor because you believe that Trump, he has the authority and is in the proper place to administer how this whole thing goes, then you would be in a position where the prison might take redress against you. You might get fired because you think you're obeying a high law. Look what happened to Tina. She believes she was protecting the federal vote according to federal law. And the judge, when she was prosecuted, wouldn't let anything before the jury into the trial concerning excuse me, I didn't come and call, I apologize. The judge wouldn't let anything into the trial concerning the federal side of Tina's work stuff and authority, etc. And so she was convicted. The jury didn't know that she was operating under federal directives. In fact, she was operating as an officer of the U.S. House, because when the electors are sent, where do they go? To the U.S. House to present the election results for the presidency. And so the clerk is an agent or officer of the U.S. House, operating as a federal officer to provide and protect the vote information on a federal vote, especially in a presidential election for the U.S. House. So all of that was barred from the jury. All of that was barred from the court hearings. 41 motions trying to bring that in. Tina's going to win her appeal eventually. Colorado won all the stuff saying Trump could be taken off the ballot until they got the Supreme Court. And it was overturned 9-0. 9-0. How many cases did the Supreme Court get a 9-0 determination on? Almost none. But even the most liberal justices in the Supreme Court couldn't side with the state of Colorado and all the courts till they got there. Think about that. So are they going to be right on the Tina's case? Well, they might have been right up to a point. They're going to lose at the highest court, and they're going to lose miserably. And then the question is, can Tina sue you? I'm going to tell her to have no mercy. Why? It's not about you. If you're an employee in the federal prison, it's about the next guy. And he has to decide, just like the Nuremberg trials, is the punishment severe enough it stops the next guy from deciding, oh, I'm just doing what I'm told.
Looks like he lost the signal.
Yeah.
Yep, he did.
Many times I've said the most important thing is to look up the meaning of sedition and look up the meaning of treason, because that's why so much time was taken during the Kavanaugh appointment interview with Congress. Everybody's worried about Comey. I'm willing to bet you Comey is going to be military because sedition and treason. So important to look up the definition, because there's a lot of people in America that are committing sedition and treason because they don't understand the meaning of sedition and treason, and very severe penalties. And so important to look up those two definitions, because our Constitution protects us who operate in what one is saying. You operate in the law, and you have a choice to be lawful or not. And what we just did with all those generals coming in to Quantico, they're going to remove the two-tier system. We're going to come back to the truth. We're going to protect our own people, our own borders, our own structure. We're going to get things back the way they need to be. And those of you who are trying to do it in a different way, you need to look at the fact that you're not creating another country inside America. Those days are over, and there's a lot of people who've been trying to do that. So important. Look up sedition, look up treason, and it looks like one's back.
The prison employees are put in a catch-22. It's an unfair situation. Advocating for them because they've been put in this catch-22. Obey the governor or get fired. And you're going to be abused at work. Might lose your job, might lose your clearance, whatever. If you obey the governor, you might be subject to prosecution at some point in time. That's the story of A Few Good Men. Go watch the movie. Go out. It's about a variation of this very scenario. But we're just following orders. We're just doing what we were told. Okay, well, you have the responsibility. All those seditious sick to go and not do what the president says. Anything. You have something where there is actual action, and the governor's telling you to disobey a presidential pardon, as though he has the right to tell you to do that, and you're going along with it. You better get a legal opinion enforced by a letter from your attorney to the various legal entities. There's several of them, and that they're going to sign off. Will take the hit if it's coming for you, if the federal government's coming, face the consequences. I'd fight right now, and I'd do it with the protection of the union. We cannot be put in this situation. It's unfair to force us to be in that catch-22. Does that make sense for all you guys listening there?
That makes sense. One, and you were breaking up quite a bit. I don't know if you're in a bad area there. So, I mean, I just wanted to clarify that.
Well, it's the same thing that we just went through with the military. Remember that military accountability letter, 4 a.m. 1/1 of 2024. What did it say in it? It said it starts with court-martial. Is that Lindsey Graham spent a lot of time going through with Kavanaugh. This is civil law. This is military law. The only way is the military. is not about military troops coming into your house
No.
and doing something with you. The only way is the military, because military law is what handles sedition and treason. And it starts with the people in the military.
Yeah.
And that's why this Senator Kelly, or Mark Kelly, thinks that he's free to say whatever he wants because he's a senator. Those days are behind you, sir. We're coming to the rule of law, which is what the president, he held up the Bible. This is the rule of law. He warned everybody how many times? And people keep saying, well, why weren't they arrested at this election? Why weren't they arrested at that election? He gave them 3 opportunities: 2018, 20, and 22. Gave you 3 opportunities, and they still committed the same crimes in 24. Why? No one had arrested them yet. They got away with it. So we'll just keep getting away with it. Well, that doesn't make it right. It doesn't mean you're not going to pay consequences. Where we're at right now, we have all sorts of groups in America trying to put a different America together, trying to sway people to follow this general because he's going to be the next president. Follow this colonel, he's going to be the next president. This is happening in America today. That's all sedition. Trying to develop a republic, and that's what I found out back in 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12. They arrested the president. The people that made sure that president was arrested are still involved.
Yeah.
None of those got arrested. They committed the same crimes. They made stationery and business cards, and they've been holding meetings and conferences. You cannot set up another government structure when one is in place. That is sedition. When you knowingly commit a crime, even though someone gave you orders, and it's the same with the military as it is with medical, as it is with corporate food, as it is with all these other things, everything is the same. There's only one rule of law.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a civil justice system that is so corrupted because the judge with Tina Peters, the judges that haven't taken their oaths to this nation and have been sitting in those chairs and making decisions on legal Americans. That's what I kept emphasizing in the new book with the FBI. I watched them completely focus on issues with legal Americans. Not once did they choose to arrest an illegal committing crimes against America and Americans.
My God, Sheila, this is going to be a gut punch because everyone is involved, even the regular citizen, because they think, oh, okay, let's move it on. When they see this coming, I don't know how long would it take for this to be unfold in front of us.
It's not about time. We have to get this right.
No.
And you stepped right into it, Anna, because this is what people are not understanding. Individually, we the people want justice. And that's what we were kind of talking about with Tina Peters. We want justice. But what we don't understand is we're surrounded by people operating illegally to the point of crimes against America and crimes against us.
Yeah.
And we haven't, I've been beating the drum since the 1980s about student visas. Student visas just became a topic after I gave the Nation Restoration book to Elon Musk in the end of May. Right when he got the key and then left the president, and they had that whole thing going on between them. Now, all of a sudden, student visas are a conversation. These people got here on student visas starting in the 1980s, and they've never left this country.
Huh.
Sheila,
visitor visas of all their family. Chain migration, illegal. Presidents talked about it again and again. But we have people in America who have been harboring them. You're harboring enemies, foreign and domestic, and you think you're not committing a crime. All of this is going to be dealt with.
Yeah.
And when you said, how far back do we go? I've already mentioned we had undocumented foreign nationals as president who should never have even been on our ballot, going back several presidents. Now, how far do you rip us apart? How far do you take us back? I think what you're going to see, and this is just Sheila, but I've been watching all of this unfold. Nobody seemed to get how illegal all of these things have been against the true Americans and against our Constitution. And that's why I sent out the picture that a friend shared. We don't have to rewrite this. They've been wanting to rewrite our Constitution because they don't want to stand by a republic for we the people.
Mm-hmm.
It's a republic for America. Total difference, United States of America is of this entity. A
Yeah.
corporation is an entity. Every village, town, city, county, state is an entity that we don't even see. But that's why even the little villages that might only have a few people
Mm-hmm.
have a corporate trustee board.
Mm-hmm. They are everywhere.
Everything is focused on the money, the budgeting, and getting more money
Yeah.
for any purpose imaginable.
But
There's a
Sheila,
guy,
yeah. No, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but next year and 2 years from next year into 2028, we are going to have big events, sport events. I know, I understand that the continuity of the military operation, maybe as we have had World Cups and Olympics games as military operation running on the cover. That's my take. But next year, and President Trump has been being vocal and graphically exposing all the gold and all that. It has to have some symbolism. So my question is, do you think we are going to see something big worldwide or even American wide for the people in the world to watch? Because these two events, these two sport events, are very symbolic of the world, the old world. They have to collapse. It's not that the world, the soccer games shouldn't happen. It can happen, of course it can happen. It makes people happy, but people have to understand the big picture. Am I being clear, Cranker? Please help me. I don't
Well,
know.
I just think that, like Sheila's been saying, I mean, we've been covering this in our previous shows. This is, and we talked about it earlier, this is not going to be a flip of a switch. There's nothing that you can just flip a switch and this is going to just change. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's a lot of shoveling that needs to be done. And we have to put our foundation of our country back together. And we can't build, I'm a builder. You can't build something unless you have a solid foundation. What we're doing is we have to put a brand new foundation down. We have to fix the foundation.
But when we
that's what
talk,
President Jefferson said. He said, once there's an evil, once it's been corrupted, you can't just remove that evil and replace it with something. And that's where we are. Now, there is part of the Constitution that when we need to do an election for the Republic, it's a 120-day set. So the 2020 election may not even look like a regular election because the election dates are different in the corporation. The everything is different in the corporation. And I think it's difficult to try and think about the other nations because we're becoming the example because the other nations are having the same problem because the playbook of the enemy is human wisdom. They've done the same thing everywhere. That's what why they went around the world and made democracies. That's not how they were set up. They were all, it even was the Soviet Socialist Republics was the SSR. USSR, United Soviet Socialist Republic. And that doesn't even make sense because a socialist government is not a republic.
Right.
Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
But republics were set up all over the world. That's what they
Mhm.
set up because they saw the example in America.
Mhm.
Because the founding fathers, and again, people keep telling me horrible stories about the founding fathers. Please stop. And that Abraham Lincoln was horrific. Please stop. Because they are doing everything they can, and that's part of the 45 points, is to discredit all the founding fathers because they're the ones that came with the truth. They lived in tyranny.
Mhm.
These men sacrificed everything in order to put this government together. But it's not easy for we the people to be involved in the structure so much that we keep it clean and we keep it from being corrupted. And that's the responsibility. And that's what I'm praying about in the exposure and the revealing for people to see where they can stand up and make a difference in their area because they're hearing where the fraud and corruption is. And that's why Titus 1 was so important in the new book. Because if we don't start finding those two elders for every part of our community who are not going to allow grifting and deceiving of the people, but it starts in the house of the Father, because the house of the Father is corrupted right now. It's corrupted, which is why the pilgrims banned it for 500 years, because they knew if they could ban it for 500 years and raise the children per the four pillar faith monument, we would have generations that would never depart from the Lord, and we would not have to keep fighting this. This has been a fight since the garden. This
Yeah.
fight is so huge. And so to wonder how Trump's going to work out all the other countries, he's working out all the other countries and bringing everyone to a level playing field and stopping all the wars and bringing everyone together in peace. And yet we're worried because some Americans don't know that it's truly the Father in heaven that's in charge of all of this.
Exactly. It
They
is.
want to say that he's in control, but only Satan controls. So here we are. We believe. I just sent out Charlie World just sang with Brooks and Dunn at the music country music thing or the Dove Awards, I believe.
The Grand Ole Opry.
And they were in the Grand Old Opry, and he had just become a member, and he sang with them, I believe.
I believe.
And it's a story of a man who lost his wife, lost his baby, lost. He was, I believe, in the military. He came home and lost everything.
Mhm.
And yet he said, I am going to see them someday, I believe. And that song is based upon that very, very smart, short, brief story. And yet it's so emotional to realize when you come through the storm, you're still going to believe.
Yeah.
To get through the storm, you have to believe.
Yeah.
People have been writing to me now, how can I have the faith you have? I had no other option. And I
Mhm.
wanted to come home several times. So when that FBI agent looked at me and said, we just want to know how are you coming through this and not committing suicide, it was easy. I said, God, but how many more are left in the week? Who else am I fighting? Nobody would tell me. But nobody understood in my life the battle I was against. So many people want to know about the cases I fought and everything else. I've repented. I've forgiven all of those people. I'm not going to go back and look at the docket numbers and cases. It was constant cases against me. But Trennis Evans, and I recommended to a few people just today, who said, I want to go look up those cases and see how to fight my own battles. It's not about Sheila Holm created responses or defenses or took on people and wrote the cases. What I found out is because I couldn't afford an attorney, I didn't have money to live. How was I going to afford an attorney?
Yeah.
And so I had to find it all myself. So we recommended go to the law library. You've got all sorts of interns and law students that are in there and ask them questions and they'll direct you and help you. Because we, the people, have to learn it ourselves. It's not that my cases are even going to relate to somebody else's cases, because every case is different. And so it's where we're at is a lot of people want someone to tell them. And that's where the evil kingdom, the other kingdom, set us up to want to know from somebody else how to do it. Want someone else to help direct how we take this path. We want someone else to tell us. And that's why people are following instructions. And that's why I brought up the military when Juan was saying all this, is because that is exactly what they learned from the president back in 2018. When could you guys be done with this war? And they said 7, maybe 10 days. And he said, well, if it's 7, maybe 10 days, why aren't you guys out of here? Sir, we're following orders. That's when he heard from the troops directly. They're not over there fighting a war.
No,
They're following orders of people who want to continue the war.
Yeah.
And the poppy fields were the main interest in all of these wars. Poppy fields all over, protected with Agent Orange. Our guys never knew. To this day, they never knew that it's more important to save the poppy fields for heroin than it is to save the soldiers that you sent into that war.
Oh my God. They are not human.
Vietnam, I'm not kidding you, every one of them in Afghanistan grew like 250% in the first year. And that war was declared over, I think, wasn't it 2003? Do you remember, Mike? I think it was 2003 when George W. Bush came out and stood out on a carrier out in San Diego and thanked everybody and said it was over.
Yeah.
What?
It
It's
never
over?
began. Right. That he created, that he ended.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what they've done. That's what's in the book. They created and set us up for World War I. Didn't win that. Set us up for World War II with Pearl Harbor. They knew when Pearl Harbor was going to happen and didn't even warn our guys. All they want to do is keep us in war. So one of the biggest things, and I know the president wants to correct currency and correct the elections. We have to do that to be solid. But every other nation needs to be doing it too.
Yes.
But you're noticing how every nation is looking for him to help them. And he is. He's helping everybody. He's bringing peace to nations who've never been at peace. He's bringing peace to key nations who've been fighting for and killing each other off for 34 years. Congo and Rwanda.
Sheila, may I address that too, regarding Brazil? Is that, of course, we are looking to United States because I understand I understand part of the plan, and I'm understanding. So, but I totally agree. Who am I to say that I agree? But yes, I totally support President Trump being very, very, very friendly with President Lula, because having Lula at the presidency here in Brazil, we are avoiding a huge civil war. The left side, they are very organized. They are very well structured. And in the other side, what we have on the right side, the parties on the other side, they are completely in bed with the Zionists. So you see, I understand that it's very good if you want to unite, and that's the way we have to unite again the countries. So we bring peace. And he's being very, very friendly to President Lula. And today or yesterday, this magnetic regarding the SCOTUS, the Supreme Court here in Brazil, I said, brilliant! I totally support that, because we have to calm down, guys. Stop putting fingers in front of each other. Let's work for the best of the whole nation, and not just for me or for you. Let's put it all together. I know that we cannot mingle with communists. I know we cannot mingle with the enemy. I know, but sometimes to avoid a bigger massacre, and we were heading that direction. To avoid that, and to make people aware that we all need to prepare ourselves to study. We need to speak Portuguese properly. We need to study the whole history of our country. I have been, because of this, because I'm looking towards new United States, I have been working on me to take back lessons that I didn't receive in my education, and I studied in the best school here in Rio. I were in the best of the best, and I didn't know my whole history. And now I'm studying. I am preparing myself, and I'm in my 40s. I talk to people in their 70s, in their 60s, in their 80s. They didn't know the story of their own country. They didn't know the coup that happened with the monarchy. I'm not a monarchist. We don't have to support the old, but we have to understand what brought us here. You know. Um, anyway, I'm sorry. I
No,
talk.
it's okay. You didn't have the founding of a structure like the Pilgrims. And that's what
Mhm,
I've been talking to Juan about a lot because South Africa doesn't have, nobody else has it. That's
mhm,
what makes, I think what that's what makes America different because the founding was so strong.
of course.
And they really did accomplish it. The Gentile worship didn't come back until into the mid to 1800s toward the Civil War is when things got really bad. And it was when they brought all these people in who demanded to have Christmas, demanded to have Easter. Started in some of the states in 1838. And yet by 1847, they thought it's so bad that Jesus has to come. It can't be, it can't continue like this. Our
Like that.
families can't survive it. And then it went right into civil war. And that's what they want now. So the one thing you were emphasizing is the left, the communists, the right. We cannot be divided and get through the
Mhm,
storm.
mhm.
We cannot be left and right. We cannot be Republican, Democrat. We cannot be in a two something conversation. That keeps us in the battle. You can never win the war if you stay in the battle. And that's what is going on. And so we didn't understand our history either. We didn't win the War of 1812. We didn't win the War of 1781. We didn't win the War of 1755. We didn't win World War One. We didn't win World War Two. We didn't win with Korea. We didn't win with Vietnam. We didn't win in the Middle East. It's just war. And that's what enemies, foreign and domestic, do. But that's why it was wonderful when President Trump sent out the message, had to learn how to love the haters. Now, that's a biggie.
Yeah.
Very
I
good.
started making a
Yeah.
list. Is there
Yeah.
anybody else, Lord, that I've not repented over or have forgiven? Because honest to goodness, when you think about it, and it's so funny because of Jefferson and Adams, Adams was one of the judges in the state court that went to prison on the federal RICO charges. That's the only name I remember. I don't even remember the presiding judge who was the kingpin of all of it because it's all been repented. And I think I only remember Adams because it was such a simple name. And Adams was married to another judge, was able to get a divorce while he was there. And when they got him out on early outs, Adams got to go and be at his halfway house, which was with his ex wife, who he never really divorced. He gave her all the assets, and we paid for a public defender for a judge. I mean, really? Whose wife was a judge.
Mhm.
And then when he went to the halfway house with her, it was in Hawaii between Bedminster and Beth Midler and Sylvester Stallone's mansions. So imagine what her house looked like.
Yeah.
So the headline in the newspaper was Maestro of their own orchestration. Nothing about the judges today is different than what I dealt with then. Nothing. Nothing is different today about family. Nothing is different today about not following the rule of law. Nothing is different today about any of these things. But if we don't unite as people, believing people, and figure out a way to unite together, that's what's going to pull us through this. The price that Trump is paying is not just for America, it's global. You have to have peace globally. Otherwise, what we do in America isn't going to stand. So the focus is, will we unite together as believers in truth and operate that way? Or will we want to go to Italy so bad we get the vax? Will we want to get a job, keep our job so bad we get a vax? That was a minor example of what it is when you're tested. Are we going to be able to hold on for the truth and justice and giving justice equal to mercy to people? Or are we going to come back as people go, I can't wait till it's normal again? It was never normal. So it doesn't matter who understands what they understand or how much of where we've been that they understand. That doesn't matter. Every day we have a fresh start. If we can stop talking about parties, stop talking about right and left, stop talking about who might be communist, who might be socialist, who might be this, who might be that, because Christ walked with all of them. And I don't know a person that he walked with that didn't change. And for us to be able to do that, people are so furious with me because they say the people that you meet with and the people that you talk with, you know, that person's like this. And you never should have been on Reawaken Tour because did you know that you were on stage right after this person? And did you know they're a Scientologist?
Oh God.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
But I know all of you live it. I'm just giving you little minor examples for me. But why were you doing that with these people? I have people who are refusing to interview me, refusing to talk to me, and refusing to say how close we were as friends because I was on the Reawaken Tour.
Wow.
But this is how narrow-minded people are,
But
though, Sheila.
yeah, but it's where the world is. They
Yeah.
treated Christ the same way.
The same way.
Yes.
They didn't send him to the cross because he was Christ. They sent him there from the high level in the Jewish faith.
Yes.
But was it the Jewish faith? Because it's just a religion.
Mm-hmm.
I had this conversation with somebody at Mar-a-Lago who's an Israeli. I said, "You are? Really? Okay. How did you become that?" Well, you know, Israelis are, you know. I said, "Are they? Really?" Well, because I was raised Jewish. And I said, "Really? So does that mean I was raised Lutheran and kind of sometimes Presbyterian and sometimes Episcopalian because I've got Scottish, English, and Norwegian in me? Is that kind of who I am then? So should I introduce you that I'm a Norwegian Lutheran with Scottish, Presbyterian, and English
You're a
Episcopalian in
mutt.
me?
You're a mutt.
Total mutt. But do you see the difference? And
Yeah.
then you're either a Christian and nothing that we're doing and calling it Christian has anything to do with Christ.
I know
So
it.
we're kind of out in the limb on our own. And then the Jewish people saying they're Jewish. And now, can you believe Sheila's honoring Hanukkah? Well, Hanukkah's in the Bible.
Feast of life. Yeah.
Festival of dedication, festival of light. Are you dedicated, committed to Christ, who is the morning star? Because if you're a Hebrew Israelite, I don't think there are any Israelis. And I don't know that there's anybody in Israel or was in Israel when Christ came, because he transported with the disciples and met the tribes internationally. They can all tell you about it because they don't forget the truth. Because what they've done is pass on the truth. It was so hard for them to be kicked out of their houses and off of their land. But they aren't going to get rid of the truth. That's why they etched in stone in all these different states and in the caves and everything. in Paleo Hebrew, ancient Hebrew. You wouldn't know that unless you were one of the tribes.
Yeah, and it's because
But
you are, I'm sorry, Sheila, but I'm sorry, everyone, but it's because we are made of it. It's not because I learned something. I'm made of, you're talking about the truth and how does it, how we are made of it. I don't, I
well,
can,
and what if we make it? I think I talked about this before. If I don't mean to repeat things I said before, but Ephesus was pretty rotten. That's where Pythia, the daughter of Apollo, the background with Pythagoreanism, he used the same tree stumps that she used as a worship center, and then Diana of Ephesus was after her. That's where that worship center is. And along comes the truth, and they become Ephesians. Do you think that we could start calling the believers Americans? Just like Ephesus became Ephesians, and Corinth became Corinthians, and Philippi became the Philippians. Do you suppose we could do something like that in our nations? That the Brazilians are the
oh,
believers? If
mm,
we started something like that, because there's only truth or death. That's where we are, and that's where life has been from the very beginning.
perfect. Yes. Wow. So we are
So if
we what we are seeing, it's not about we are building a nation of Christ, a nation of truth.
yes,
Yes.
That's what it's being brought to the light here.
yes. Did I ever tell you guys that the motto for Harvard, did I ever talk about this? The motto
Oh,
for Harvard was the Ecclesia of the Fellowship of Christ, de Christo in Veritas. So we're the fellowship of Christ in truth. Do you know what the motto is today? Veritas. And they're questioning, even in Harvard, whose truth do you believe? There's only one truth. There are no versions of the truth. So to teach youth, and you're talking about what this professor's truth is and what this person's truth is. Somebody told me that the other day. Sheila, what do you do when your truth doesn't compare with anybody else? I said, because it's not my wisdom, it's the Father. And I keep being asked, and I was just asked several times today because the newsletter just went out yesterday. I hope you guys got it. And if anybody didn't get it, please write in, and it says on the contact page newsletter, put your name in and email address. And so if we don't know truth, if we don't operate with truth, and they said, so how can we get tight with the Father and know truth and hear him even when he whispers? Talk to him. He never sleeps. You don't have to worry about what time you talk with him. You don't have to worry about what you're sharing with him. You've heard examples of where I go right at him. And I call it Sheila mode because I'm not being righteous with the Father when I'm questioning the Father's wisdom, but I don't realize it at the time because I've been told so many lies. And I feel bad sometimes when I do that. But for that Hebrew scholar saying, sometimes with God, it seems like you're arguing with him, you're debating him. But he wants you to know your questions are pretty interesting and you intrigue him. But sooner or later, you're going to quit trusting in you and your wisdom more than you trust in him and his wisdom. That was in 2016, before the first book in the book series came out. And that's why I stayed in Georgia and wrote the book series, is because when he told me about my life and what God was trying to do with me, everything that Father has sent us here to do is bigger than we can imagine, and we can't do it without him.
yeah.
And that's the biggest thing, to unite together as believers and support and encourage and inspire each other when you're thinking, not qualified. You could send these people because, Father, I find they're really wise, and you should really be using them because I'm not, I can't compare with what they can do. And I mean, I gave him people, guys that were selling 65, 75,000, In my lifetime, I don't think I've sold that many books. And I've been selling a lot of books since 2014. My business book was 2007, but I can't even compare with stuff like that. But what he's doing with me, some of the people have been asking, what is it like to be where you are now and see what Father has done? And I even told the team, the tech team that put the newsletter together, I said, I stand in shock and awe. I didn't know this was ever going to happen. I didn't know he was going to share all this with me. I didn't know I was going to be able to explain things. I was so scared that the new book wasn't going to be a training manual. And I never told you guys this. And then what you did the last two programs with us together, you were telling me that you really get it and that it really is helping you like a training manual. And we never talked about this. And I always feel, because you never know when you finish a book, and are you really finished with the book? Because sometimes I don't think I'm ever going to be finished with the book. And I've come from finishing them in 7 weeks, 7 days, but there's always been such an urgency with the Father. And those three books, the second edition, Nation Restoration, and 6 and 7 in the series, I didn't feel I could stop and do this 45-point book because it seemed overwhelming. And I didn't see how I could do it. And he said, we're going to do it together, just like he did the devotional. I said, I don't want to do a fluff devotional. Well, we're going to do one together. We're going to do it my way this time. What's your way? 1 through 7, more than 52 weeks, training me to understand the Hebrew calendar back then. And people keep wondering and asking me, I need to know what I'm supposed to be doing here. Only the Father can tell you. But if you're trying to find out, because that's what happens, we went out and got jobs to be successful in the world, and we accomplished something, and we gained a title, and we became involved. And so we think that's us. Did you ever really know who you really are? Did you ever ask the Father why you're even here? Because when I tell him things are too big, and I don't know why you sent me to Georgia. I think I told you guys about this. I said, am I being sentenced? Because I don't understand the language. I don't understand anything. And now I look back on it, and guys, I have never lived in the South. I never understood the Confederacy. What they were battling then, we are battling now. What the Civil War was about is and that's how I could tell. I wouldn't be able to tell you if I was still in California. I wouldn't be able to tell you if I was still in Nebraska. But what Father said, and he showed me in the vision, he showed me a barrelwood map, gorgeous barrelwood map with a red heart pumping, saying Heart of Georgia. I said, it is the armpit of Georgia. There isn't anybody who calls Macon, Georgia, the heart of Georgia. And you have placed me in the armpit of Georgia. And I just thought maybe you were angry with me. And then he's expanding the map, and I'm not even thinking about that because I'm like, why would you do this to me? I'm trying to do what you want me to do, and I'm stuck here. And then he showed me Nebraska, barrelwood map, heart pumping. Did I ever tell you guys this?
No.
And as that's pumping, he said, I trained you in Nebraska to be ready for now. And I had the guts to say, God, I didn't come from Nebraska. I've been in California since college, and I got my other degrees in California, and I've been in California my adult life, and then you send me here. He expanded the map. California was a desert. I said, oh God, it looks so good from the ground. I mean, we've really built it up. I mean, we've really made it a really great area, Father. I mean, it's not a desert now. And he goes, were you not in the desert the same amount of time as the people I removed from Egypt? I couldn't talk. These experiences are what you have when you just say, I need to know, Father. Why am I here? What is it you want me to do? Have that conversation with him. He's not going to ignore you. He's going to not, when people say, well, I talk to him all the time and I never hear anything. Are you talking to him about your purpose and plan to be here? Because he sent us here for such a time as this. Every one of us have a reason to be here now in this generation, the most historic ever generation in all of history going back to the Garden of Eden. There is no other generation that compares with this one. None. That's why they killed 64 million in abortion. I think I've mentioned this many times.
Yep.
We are here for such a powerful, powerful time. And that's when I get excited, is when people want to know, okay, then, if I do this, and I'm never going to be giving you an opinion on what you should be doing. That is not me. The Father directs all of this. And I can tell you right now, I had no idea I'd be doing this. I had no idea I'd still be in Georgia. 3 weeks in 2013, and I'm still researching in Georgia. But I would never have been able to slow down because it is slower in the South. I would never have been able to take this on. I never would have been able to understand the heart of the Confederate men and why they're still raising the flags in the back of their trucks, because they didn't want this whole thing that was being developed in the North to spread across this country. And that's why Gettysburg is full of bodies from Minnesota, Michigan, all across the country. There's entire sections of gravestones for all these different states who all came to stop what was happening in this nation, because they didn't want it to be just like the Pilgrims. They didn't know what the Pilgrims knew, but they knew they didn't want it to be what it was becoming. And they didn't know how to do what we're doing right now. But if we get stuck in trying to figure out who's going to fix this, we're spinning our wheels. It's just like when COVID was happening and everybody was stuck and the lockdown happened and everything else. There were all sorts of jokes going around that, there was a room I was going to take care of in my house, and I was going to take care of it when I wasn't working. I wasn't at the office every day. Well, they had weeks where they weren't at the office and that room still looked the same. And look at your own life. Where have you progressed from when that lockdown happened that we didn't know was going to happen? And it happened just within a week or 10 days of the devotional coming out. I had no idea there was going to be a lockdown. I had no idea why it was so urgent. 7-year conversation. It got done in 7 days. It was that urgent. And so, but I don't know. I don't know what he's going to do next. And everybody wants to know, well, what's going to happen next? And what's Trump going to do next? And what he announces tomorrow night is going to be spectacular. But you got to ask, what's my part in this? What can I do? Because I've mentioned this before. If we don't wake up every day saying, thank you, I'm still here. What do you want me to do?
Well, I think that's the biggest thing that we're all playing our role in this humbly, is we just have to surrender to that fact. And I think, there are things and signs that are happening on a daily basis, specifically tomorrow, when the president comes out and says that. But I think there is,
which happens to be on the 17th.
Yeah. And Juan said that today, was on the 17th, and he just shook. You can see his head shaking because he's got his head. I mean, as he said, he goes, and on the 17th. So there's a lot of significance to tomorrow. I hate dates. I hate, I don't want to say anything like that. But
wasn't it 17 points too? There was another 17 with this when he said on the 17th day.
He said the 17th day, and it was at the front of what he said.
He said,
But it was in reference to that, but irrelevant to the fact that there's things happening above us, and we are not that, and I'm pleased that I am thankful and grateful that I'm part of where I'm at right now. And I just want to pray and thank God for the panel that we have and the conversations that we have, because I really feel in my heart and in our conversations that we have and how we do our calls, it's authentic, and there's an authenticity to conversation, and there's an intimacy to conversation. And Lord, we just thank you for just that intimacy that we can have and share in just our experiences and how we can grow, and how we're going to understand that next step, because that's the biggest question that we all have is, we are in the dark still, and we want you to help us be that light again. Every step you turn the light on. And we just thank you for this opportunity that you've given us tonight, to just to share. And we thank you for Sheila coming in. We thank you for Juan coming in and being a part of his wisdom that he's provided for us in the world that we're living in right now. But just give us that wisdom, discernment, understanding, and take away our pride. Just take away our pride, because we are nothing. And we just want to surrender to the path that you've given to us. And Lord, it's in this that we give to you in your name. Amen.
My name's James McCrank. I would like to ask the board a question. Are you guys familiar with the Nassar Act? Are you familiar with it? You're not familiar.
Can't say that I am, but we generally don't respond, so go ahead.
Okay. Well, it's important that we do get response, because we're not getting any response, and that's why we're all here. The bottom line is this. The United States of America Corporation is dead. Trump killed it 3 years ago. That flag doesn't represent us. That gold fringe around that flag is the signature of the corporation. And the reason that the media is not reporting it, the reason you guys aren't showing up, our sheriff isn't showing up, are you guys part of the corporation, or are you part of America? Because everyone here is standing up for our rights. What legacy are you guys going to leave behind for your grandchildren and your kids? And I'm surprised that there ain't thousands of people here tonight. Either we got to do the right thing here, audit these elections, or the military is going to come in and do it. And if they do it, people are going to jail.
Through the storm, our birthrights that the bankers stole, they engineered each crash. They filled their vaults with the people's gold as they printed paper cash. A casino called the stock exchange, where the gambling begins. An investment tool to tempt the fool, where the dealer always wins. In this corporate world of government, where nothing's what it seems, your pathway set with every step to a grave of broken dreams. Unlearning everything we knew is a painful place to dwell, as a wizard sits controlling you behind his hidden veil. A global world agenda set by the deep and darkest state. They're puppets dancing on a string to divide the world with hate. The American dream and our flag of hope, they never let us be. We will serve each other under God in the land of the brave and free. We all saw our world collapsing.
The next thing that's got to fall are these failed, corrupt institutions. And when God Almighty sits and takes that judgment seat, it's over. So do what you can to improve the terrain until there is freedom.
We are the people, we are sovereign, moving forward through the storm. we stand. Like McKinley, Lincoln, Kennedy, we were told to trust the plan. The grandmasters playing 5D chess, they all know the art of war. Real generals on this battlefield led the Anons through the door. Information is the biggest threat in our search to find the proof. Such patriots we won't forget, who all dared to share the truth. We once stood alone against the beast, but united we will fall when we go one.